These are the criminals who were either born criminals or didn't know right from wrong. Let's get right to it, starting with number 5, dining and dashing. Paul Guadalupe Gonzales gained notoriety as the Dine-and-Dash Dater for his elaborate schemes to con women he met online using dating apps. Gonzales ran his scam for 2 years and managed to bilk 18 women out of more than $950 by orchestrating expensive meals at upscale restaurants and then disappearing. Gonzales employed a calculated approach to his scam. He would cruise dating apps like Plenty of Fish and Bumble to meet single women and then present himself as a charming and interesting man. After that, he would invite his victims to meet him at upscale restaurants. Once there, he would go on to order expensive meals complete with wine, filet mignon, shrimp, and multiple coffees, all while telling stories about his supposed participation in bodybuilding competitions. But just as the meal was over, Gonzales would say he needed to make a phone call and walk out of the restaurant, leaving his unsuspecting dates to pay the bill. The losses incurred by these women added up to nearly $1,000, with some forced to cover their own expenses, while others got lucky and the restaurant paid the tab. Eventually, Gonzales was caught and brought to justice. After his arrest, he pleaded no contest to 3 misdemeanor counts of defrauding an innkeeper by non-payment and 1 misdemeanor count of petty theft. His plea came after he had been arrested by Pasadena police the previous year. Gonzales was sentenced to 120 days in county jail in addition to 3 years of probation. Furthermore, the court imposed a restriction on him, forbidding him from using dating apps Plenty of Fish and Bumble for the duration of his 3-year probation. His sentence also mandated restitution payments of $240 to 2 of his victims and enforced the requirement to stay at least 100 yards away from 5 specified restaurants. It makes you wonder why he'd go to all that trouble of getting a date just to get a free meal and talk about bodybuilding to some chick that's pretending to be interested. The man has to focus on that calorie maintenance and his protein intake, and we get that. But why go out on a date? He could have just done the same thing by himself, but with less consequences. He must have needed an audience to talk about his gains. Otherwise, it's just a boring meal without anyone complimenting him. Number 4, the smartest scammer. Nikesh Patel was a man with the potential to become a multi-millionaire entrepreneur, but instead he delved into a complex world of fraud and deceit. His story is one of scams, spending, and an escape attempt that ultimately landed him a 25-year prison sentence. Nikesh Patel used his charm and smooth-talking persona to operate a massive scam, selling $179 million worth of fake loans to a Milwaukee investment firm. He portrayed himself as the CEO of First Farmers Financial LLC, a Florida-based company, and used fabricated documents to convince investors that a portion of the loans were backed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. In reality, these loans were completely made up, lacking actual borrowers or any governmental guarantees. The fraud extended from Orlando to Milwaukee, leaving a trail of small banks, municipal investment portfolios, and over 200 Chicago area municipalities severely impacted. Patel's scheme was so intricate, involving lies and counterfeit documents, that a judge actually referred to him as a diabolical genius. During the investigation, Patel managed to manipulate the legal system to his advantage. He convinced the judge to allow him to remain out on bail while awaiting sentencing, promising to aid in the recovery of funds to repay his victims. But instead of helping those victims, he just started another scam instead. Posing as a bank executive, Patel managed to pull off another sham loan scheme, pocketing the proceeds for his extravagant lifestyle. Patel then attempted a Hollywood-style escape plan. On the day of his sentencing, he was arrested at a Florida airport attempting to board a private jet. It turns out that Patel planned to escape to Ecuador with his family using ill-gotten assets to establish a new life of luxury. He intended to live in a multi-million-dollar home, buy luxury vehicles, and send his daughters to an English language school. Ecuador has been known to not honor extradition requests despite a treaty in places. As his escape attempt failed, Patel faced the consequences in a federal courtroom in Chicago. The judge handed down a 25-year prison sentence and expressed astonishment at Patel's ability to conceive and execute such an intricate plot and at the scale of devastation his actions caused to innocent victims. The complexity and success of the scam really shows what a waste of mind Patel was. This dude could have easily been a millionaire, but taking shortcuts ruined his life. Number 3. Dumping tires. Jacksonville, Florida resident Kenneth Stephen Landers pleaded guilty to charges linked with the misuse of nearly $1 million in Paycheck Protection Program loan funds. Landers got 7 PPP loans totaling $910,000 through submitting fake information and documents in 2020 and 2021. Instead of supporting businesses and preserving jobs as the funds were designed to do, Landers allegedly treated the loan money as a personal piggy bank. He spent the money on things like the purchase of an $87,000 vintage Jaguar XKE Roadster and a gold Rolex watch. Moreover, Landers withdrew over $100,000 in cash, wrote checks to himself, and built up his personal bank account. He also paid off his own debts, including mortgages on his waterfront home and his Northside tire business. As the investigation unfolded, it was discovered that Landers had also manipulated non-profits under his control, including the American Fallen Veterans Service Project, Inc. A once empty bank account under this organization's name surged to $200,000 following approval for a COVID relief loan. This particular misuse of these funds intended to support fallen veterans' families is pretty heinous. The story takes another strange turn as a driver for one of Landers' companies was implicated in dumping hundreds of tires on vacant property. Over a period of 2 days, the driver had dumped tires piling over 5 feet high. The caretaker of the property traced the tires back to Landers, who first claimed they weren't his because he pays the company $245 every week to deal with the old tires. Of course, the community was outraged. So, Landers was confronted by a local news channel accusing him of just dumping the tires to save money, an idea he rejected because why would he want to risk his business for a couple $100 by dumping tires? But then, surprise, surprise, Landers contacted the news reporter later that day and said that an employee of his had confessed to dumping the tires and that he did it on his own. Landers said he writes a check to the place that takes care of the tires, so his driver couldn't have just dumped the tires off and pocketed the money himself. But apparently, Landers wasn't working during the holiday period when the dumping occurred, so the driver was given cash that time and apparently pocketed the money himself. It's just speculation, but it seems a lot more likely that Landers did put his driver up to it in order to save some cash. The guy clearly has no issues with being shady. At the time of this video, Kenneth Stephen Landers awaits his sentencing date. He's looking at a potential 30-year prison sentence. Maybe Kenny was just tired of running his business. We bet he's deflated now. Number 2, a mission of personal wealth. Jason Gerald Schenk, a man once viewed as a devout missionary by Amish and Mennonite communities across Ohio, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, was at the center of a massive fraud case that shocked his supporters. Schenk positioned himself as a messenger of God and pledged to use his financial support he received from these communities to distribute Bibles and Christian literature in China, where the practice of Christianity is restricted by the Chinese Communist Party. However, over the span of 9 years, Schenk allegedly diverted more than $30 million in donations meant for missionary work to fund his lifestyle instead. His lifestyle included indulgences like diamonds, gold, sports gambling, and personal investments, including properties in Santiago, Chile, and shares in a private nuclear energy company. An arrest warrant was issued for Schenk on charges of defrauding charities and individuals through wire fraud and money laundering. A grand jury indictment outlined how Schenk allegedly concealed the source of the funds by laundering them through a complex web of international bank accounts and shell companies. Schenk's scam was said to have involved dozens of money transfers across multiple bank accounts, all aimed at masking the origins of the funds as donations from individuals and religious charities. The accusation suggested that he managed to acquire $22 million from one charity that supported aid for impoverished families and disaster victims, as well as an additional $10 million from another charity that aided human trafficking victims and missionaries with medical bills. Schenk's whereabouts remain unknown, but he's believed to be living outside the United States, and authorities are coordinating efforts across multiple countries to locate and apprehend him. He renounced his U.S. citizenship in 2016 to avoid financial reporting. If captured and convicted, Schenk could face up to 20 years in prison, along with substantial penalties and forfeiture of any assets tied to his alleged offenses. You always hear about charities being shady with donations, but this guy was literally just pocketing everything. He was clever to pick people that had a pretty low probability of catching on, but it also makes the scam that much worse, doesn't it? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here for our past release to find out how these brothers scammed millions. Number 1. Corruption everywhere. James Abori's transformation from a cashier to a corrupt Nigerian state governor sounds like a thrilling novel. The former politician gained notoriety for fraud and embezzlement during his time as the governor of Nigeria's Delta state, after being found guilty of stealing £157 million from the country's public funds. Abori's rise to power began with humble beginnings in the UK, where he worked as a cashier at a building supply store called Wix. He lost his job when he was convicted for petty theft and handling stolen credit cards. You would think these early brushes with the law should have been red flags for anyone considering a career in politics or government, but they almost seem like prerequisites. Upon returning home to Nigeria, Ibori became a politician and rose through the ranks of the ruling People's Democratic Party. As the governor of Delta State, he had an elaborate network of associates, including family members and close aides, siphoning public funds for his personal use. The money was spent on luxury homes, a private jet, top-tier UK boarding schools for his kids, and a fleet of armored Range Rovers. Ibori's methods for funneling money included rigged state contracts, kickbacks, and direct transfers from state accounts. He moved his money around the world, stashing it in bank accounts worldwide. Ibori's crimes eventually caught up with him, and he was convicted and sentenced to 13 years in prison in the UK for conspiracy to defraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to make false instruments. Disappointingly, making false instruments basically means forged documents, not instruments that are just for show, like the towels in your mom's bathroom. Even Abori's conviction was accompanied by controversy as the sentencing judge criticized the ludicrously low amount of money that Abori was charged with embezzling. The judge thought that the real amount could have been as high as £200 million rather than the £157 million. Ibori also faced the project of repaying over $101 million of his ill-gotten gains or serving an additional 8 years in prison. This repayment order came after one of the most intricate confiscation proceedings in British history, showcasing the Crown Prosecution Service's determination to hold corrupt individuals accountable for their actions. We aren't just our past, and who we are now isn't always the person we were before. It would be unfair to be judged for something we did as a teenager when we're well beyond that in our years. So at what point do the mistakes of our past represent who we are now? It's hard to trust someone who claims to have never done anything wrong, because we've all done something wrong, but it's also hard to trust someone who repeatedly gets in trouble for doing wrong things. So what standards should we hold those we put in power to? Elaine Hoffman is a grandmother from Indiana who lived a quiet life. One morning in October 2015, she was going through her email when she noticed an advertisement to make money quick. Hoffman was no stranger to finances. She graduated college with a degree in math and had a successful career as a financial planner before she had to retire early due to health issues. But Elaine continued to manage her own retirement portfolio while investing in stocks and bonds. She managed to save enough money to keep her and her husband comfortable for the rest of their lives. But still, the ad intrigued her. She clicked on it and watched a video. In the clip, two attractive young millionaires talked to each other on board their private jet. They said that they made their fortune with the click of a button. Hoffman knew that they were just actors, but she still found herself wanting that lifestyle. When a phone number appeared at the end of the video, Hoffman called it. A man named Brian picked up the phone and said he was an account manager at Glenridge Capital. He told Hoffman that the company's mission was to usher clients into the realm of binary options training. Hoffman never heard of binary options, but Brian broke it down for her. If she just invested a few $100s, she would be able to set up an investment account and place bets on the value of currencies and commodities, from crude oil to Nike stock, to see if they would increase or decrease by a certain point in time. If she was right, she could win a huge return. But if she was wrong, she'd lose her entire investment. Hoffman understood the risk and was wary to invest. But Brian assured her that he and his coworkers would watch the markets and help her make a wager. He guaranteed up to 40% returns in the first 3 months. Even though Hoffman didn't need the money, she didn't want to miss out on a great opportunity to increase her savings and leave more to her grandchildren. To start, she deposited $1,000, and with Brian's help, received a decent return. Then he told her that if she increased her deposit to $5,000, Glenridge would add another 50% to make it $7,500. She quickly sent the money over. 8 months later, she had invested $150,000. She continued to successfully place wagers and make profits. Some bets lasted weeks, others lasted minutes, but she never got upset when she lost. As an experienced finance employee, Hoffman knew that you had to take big risks to make big returns. By June 2016, 9 months after first seeing the ad for Glenridge Capital, Hoffman made a $4,000 profit. But when she tried to access her winnings, Hoffman was told she needed to make 1,000 high-risk trades first. She was frustrated and decided to pull her money out of Glenridge. But the manager said he couldn't do that. For a month, she kept trying, but was unable to withdraw her money. After a year, she'd only been able to take back $10,000 of her initial investment. Hoffman started to worry that she would never see her money again. One day, the Glenridge website went down. Hoffman called the office concerned. The person on the other line assured her that it was just a temporary service loss because the company was moving offices. When the website failed to relaunch, Hoffman continued calling over and over again. Eventually, they just stopped answering. On Instagram, Josh Cartu presented himself as a race car driver and successful entrepreneur. With his Dolce & Gabbana sneakers, perfectly coiffed hair, and frequent travel photos, Josh's 750,000 followers were frequently impressed by his posts. Every few days, he posted a solo shot of him in a new location, places like Rome, Abu Dhabi, Miami, and the Maldives. He befriended A-listers like James Marsden, Robert De Niro, and Martin Scorsese. He spent his riches on a custom private jet with carbon fiber trim. He owned 12 Ferraris and often paid the $75,000 fee to race them. His followers assumed he was either an up-and-coming tech billionaire or the heir to a massive family fortune. But the truth was that he was the son of a middle-class family from Ontario. Josh grew up in St. Catharines in the 1980s and 90s as a quiet, awkward kid. His mother died when he was 6, leaving him and his brothers to be raised by their dad. He dropped out of high school and began washing cars at his dad's car dealership. Josh's biggest goal in life was to get rich. In the early 2000s, Josh tried to make it in the art world as a film director, but success was taking longer than planned. So he pivoted to tech. He moved to Cyprus, where he started working at a gambling software company called Playtech. He studied the company's operations and took his boss's connections to build his own competitor gaming platform. After modest success, Josh then started calling himself an industry tycoon. By 2008, a California tech company recruited 29-year-old Cartu to be CEO of Rome Partners, another online gambling platform. On paper, he earned $165,000 per year, but apparently stole much more than that. Players accused Josh of denying them from their winnings and stealing entire jackpot prizes all for himself. In 2013, 2 investors from Wyoming launched a civil and federal court case against him for stealing their dividends from Rome Partners and pocketing the money into his personal bank account. A judge dismissed the charges when no one was sure exactly where Josh lived. Josh, as a dual Israeli-Canadian citizen, learned that he could use his passport to escape consequences. He couldn't get in trouble if no one could find him. In the meantime, he was becoming accustomed to the life of luxury that his stealing was giving him. He bought a Rolls-Royce and 2 Ferraris, worth a grand total of $1 million. He moved into a high-tech apartment in Budapest, Hungary, complete with humidity controls, a touch-activated light-up staircase, and TV screens that came down from the ceiling. He was living the dream and was looking for ways to maintain it. Then, Josh learned about a new kind of high-risk options trading that was growing in popularity in Israel: binary options. Binary options are basically code for gambling in the investment world. But of course, this is never told in this way with potential investors in binary options. Josh and his brothers, David and Jonathan, teamed up to make a pretty penny off of the general public who had no idea what they were getting into. Basically, in binary options trading, the investor will place a bet that a certain stock will be worth a certain amount at a certain time. If correct, the investor wins money. If wrong, he loses it all. But the Cartu brothers rigged the system so their company always won. Even when traded legally, binary binary options are risky because they can bankrupt investors in an instant. When the US first started allowing binary option trading in 2008, there were already a lot of scammers ready to prey on new investors. The FBI estimated that these scammers stole $10 billion every year between 2010 and 2017. Many of the fraudsters were operating overseas in Israel, much like Josh and his brothers. The Cartoons chose to operate their business, Sandbox Media, out of Moshe Aviv Tower, the tallest skyscraper in Tel Aviv. They operated 3 trading sites, including B Options, Glenridge Capital, and Rumelia. The company's employees promised potential investors quick returns of 60 to 85%, even though the majority ended up losing most of their money. Employees also lied about their qualifications, location, and identity. They claimed that their number one priority was to make money for their investors. In reality, they just wanted to rip off clients. So many Israelis entered the fraudulent binary options trade that the government outlawed the practice in October 2017. The Cartoons' brand always manipulated their investors' bets so they would always end up winning and pocketing the money. A CFTC complaint says the brothers stole at least $165 million from their unknowing customers. They hired 40 people to work in call centers in Canada and the US under the umbrella company of Sandbox Media. They created ads containing flashy digital banners and even falsely stated that Trevor Noah made a fortune through binary options trading. Employees were encouraged to lie about their financial backgrounds and use pressure tactics on their cold calls to get people to invest. Caller IDs were hidden so that the numbers couldn't be tracked. The Cartoon brothers all used stage names. Former employees described the call centers as boiler rooms, characterized by constant competition and toxic masculinity. Brokers were required to bring in $50,000 per month from investors and receive their salaries in cash. The Cartoons held sales contests and charted their callers' commissions on the boards to create a spirit of one-upmanship in the workplace. When one brother took some employees to Berlin, he gave them his corporate credit card and said to go nuts. The $25,000 bill was expensed as staff entertainment. The true nature of Sandbox Media was hidden from employees. A former office manager thought it was actually a marketing company. In reality, it was 20 different subsidiaries legally registered in more than 7 cities and not linked to one another, making it hard to trace them back to Sandbox Media. Third parties were responsible for the funds to shield the Cartoon brothers from any suspicion. The company was incredibly successful, showing a multi-year profit of more than $233 million, outgrowing their corporate office in the Tel Aviv high-rise and moving to the ground floor of another building. The Cartoons started outsourcing their payment processing to third parties, which made profits increase even more. The success of the company attracted the attention of business magazines such as Forbes and the Financial Times, who Josh had interviews where he claimed he made his initial fortune through online gaming software and built on that by real estate and crypto investments. The Cartoons has started drawing attention to themselves through their sports cars, racetracks, model girlfriends, and beachfront villas. For David Cartoon's 35th birthday, he threw a gangster-themed party at a nightclub where they dressed for the theme, drank expensive liquor, and took a video of the night, which they later posted on YouTube. Almost 1 year after Hoffman tried to withdraw her money, she was starting to lose hope. After several failed attempts to find the location of Glenridge Capital, she found out it might actually be based in Israel. She contacted a lawyer there, but nothing came of it. She realized she had been CC'd on an email with other Glenridge investors and decided to reach out to them. Elaine realized she was just one of thousands of victims all over the world. Some of them were out hundreds of thousands of dollars. A few of the other investors had already done some of their own research. No matter which Cartoon brand they invested in, their credit cards had all been charged by Grey Mountain Management. Grey Mountain listed 2 Irishmen and David's friend as the leaders of the company, but none of them had any real role in the organization. Victims, unable to get in touch with anyone running the company, started filing police reports in their countries. Soon, authorities in Ireland, England, and the United Arab Emirates, Spain, the US, and Canada launched investigations into the Cartoons' brands. The Times of Israel released an expose of the corruption behind binary options trading, while the Irish Central Bank's money laundering unit launched an investigation into Grey Mountain's huge credit card transactions. The brothers sensed that the authorities were coming after them, so they started to close down their business practices. In July 2017, David Cartoon put a petition into Irish court to liquidate Grey Mountain. A whistleblower from their Irish satellite office came forward to police and provided more valuable information about the company's operations. The brothers erased their social media accounts, sold their shares, and built a luxury home in Ontario. By October, the Cartoons had emptied their call centers and transferred millions into offshore accounts. While David stood before a judge claiming that the company was bankrupt, Josh was posting photos of him driving a $300,000 Ferrari in Greece, partying in Kazakhstan, sunbathing in the Pacific Islands, and yachting in the Persian Gulf. In February of 2020, he disappeared. So far, the Cartoons have avoided any real consequences. A court in Texas charged them with engaging in commodity options fraud by deceptive device, but none of these accusations were proven. Lawyers for the Cartoons argued that since the brothers didn't operate their business inside the U.S., they couldn't be charged. A judge recommended the case be dismissed. In their home province of Ontario, the Securities Commission brought civil enforcement action against the brothers on behalf of 700 Ontario residents who lost a total of $1.4 million through binary options trading with Sandbox Media. David, unlike his brothers, settled with the OSC and paid $315,000 in fines and agreed to a 7-year trading ban. Jonathan and Josh, who never appeared in court, were also banned from Canadian capital markets for 10 to 15 years and ordered to pay $3.4 million. But so far, neither brother has paid a single cent. There's little hope that they'll ever pay, since most of the Cartoons' assets lie outside of Canada. Investors' last hope is Ireland, where a pro bono law firm is helping 35 victims, including Hoffman, launch suits against the brothers. They're seeking damages that total $4 million. The first case resulted in a ruling that ordered David and Jonathan to pay $124,000. Other cases are expected to turn out similarly. If the Cartoons are ordered to pay their victims, this ruling will be enforceable across the European Union. However, the Cartoons' location is currently unknown. It's believed that Josh is in Budapest, Jonathan in Dubai, and David in Dubai or Georgia. Unfortunately, without their presence, it's impossible to enforce any sort of consequences. In May 2020, Josh wrote a letter to FinTelegram News pleading his innocence and asked the paper to stop implicating his name in the binary options trading controversy. He threw his brothers under the bus instead, saying that it was entirely their business and he had nothing to do with it. Despite the Cartoons' criminal wrongdoings, Elaine Hoffman still blames herself. She says it's shame and suffering that has bonded her to the other victims. She never told her husband what transpired before he died in 2021. Hoffman, as a religious woman, says it's her faith that comforts her in this situation. Even though she doubts she'll ever see her money again, she believes that the brothers will face the consequences on Judgment Day. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section whether or not politicians should get harsher penalties than the average citizen if they're caught scamming.